Hey there everyone, Ant here again with another video. This one is actually going to be an update on Firebot. So this program definitely changes a lot. So I will not be making videos every single update. I'm only going to try to do videos, like I was saying, between some major changes. I do apologize for there being such a large gap in between my previous tutorial videos and the ones that are coming out now. I'm going to try to do them on a monthly basis or a bi-monthly basis, so that way you guys aren't just left stranded. A lot of this stuff I have just figured out by myself, and most try to do the same, but I've noticed a lot of people just give up, which is not good. So I'm going to try to help you guys as best I can. If there's any other things that you'd like to figure out or whatnot, you know where to find me, either in the comments and or hop in the Discord server and ask in the tech help and or stream help section. If you watched the previous video on the Mixer Dev Lab setup, then you will probably be curious about scene switching, which we will get into. I am just going to cover a couple of other things first. So, right when you get in, the first thing I did was I set up my logins. You want to manage your logins, you have to be signed in order to use chat and or interactive. So, that is a thing that is going to need to be done. After that, you're going to want to come over here to the button that says change board, and then you're going to want to come down here and add new board. If you have any changes to your board while the bot is active, meaning you went into the dev lab and you changed a couple of things, do not re-add the board, just resync it, and it should make the changes for you. If not, you can always just exit and relaunch, and it normally syncs up right away. So as you can see, I killed the bot because I had made a couple of changes. It was the next button and the pause and play button. If you caught the little snippet just before, it was just a play button, but I use this as play and pause. So I changed it. I did not change the ID because nobody can see that. Everybody only sees this. This is what I was meaning in the previous video about having your ID and then having the name, and then there's the cost. So at this point, you probably see I have a bunch of scenes. Like I said, we'll get into the scene switching in just a moment. I wanted to cover the buttons themselves. So when you have done everything in your dev lab, that will all be right here. And this is the portion where you implement what you want the button to do in Firebot, and then this is what people will basically be interacting with. So there are quite a few functions here. We have API reads from third-party sites, which are advice. That's just, tips, little tidbits and whatnot pulled from an advice column. It's pretty funny most of the time. Sometimes it's just general facts. But we have cat pictures and facts, dad jokes, of course, dog pictures and facts. We got some awe. Those are mostly pictures, like cutesy little pictures of like kittens and as well as just, babies, dogs, and or it could also be some awe facts as well I've seen. These are all Pokemon trivia, and then this is all number trivia, as you can tell by this one right here is my API read button, which gives you dog and cat facts. And then here is the Pokemon API read. This one is a quote button. So this is another function. This function is the chat function. So we went over the API just briefly, which there's not really much to that. Chat allows you to chat to whatever you have connected for your bot. So when people hit this button, it sends the message quote out. So if you use Squirtbot, and I believe Scottybot might have quotes too, but if you use Squirtbot, because I'm going to be using that as my prime example because that is the bot that I use, you can set it up to like whisper your bot. So like streamer whispers bot. So I whisper the bot quote, and then it just randomly outputs a quote into the chat from the list of quotes that you have stored up and or people have quoted you on, which is very handy. These are the variables down here. I shouldn't have to explain this as it is fairly simple. If you want to have a name in the chat, you would throw s parenthesis user parenthesis up there, and then it will replace the text that says user with the user's name. And then you can also put input text there if you wanted the interactive button to display the command ID. See, like this, replace the interactive button text or the chat command ID. So that would replace the text within the message itself. The cost, you can replace the cost of the command or the button, which is helpful. I tend to just not really use much of this. The user one's the only one that I typically would use because it is a good way to call someone out if they use like the scare button, like, oh, so and so tried to scare Ant, or whomever the streamer is. But yeah, very fun, very fun. The chat functions are very nice. We'll get into some crazier chat functions here in a little bit. Here is a clip button. So this is a game control. I have my shadow play, or whatever you want to call it, the little recording thing through your NVIDIA graphics drivers set up, and that is just whenever someone hits that button, it hits numpad on my keyboard and saves a 10-minute clip, which can be handy. Boom is nice, but it's only so long, so I have the clip button up so that way it gets saved to my hard drive and I can cut it up and then send it out to YouTube. This one is a Nether Chat function, which I hadn't actually set up, but it has to do with Scorpbot as well. And what it is it's whispering, again, the bot. And then just questions. So, boop, and save. Don't know why that one got deleted. But yeah, so here is another one that is a chat function. So this one is set up again through Scorpbot. So we don't really have to talk much about that. Most of mine are chat buttons that are set up to talk to Scorpbot itself, and then what they do is they output stuff into the old chat. So here, we'll actually demonstrate that, so I'm not just providing words, I'm actually providing visual evidence. So here is the channel. We'll just, Pokemon. Oh, look at that. Woohoo! Pokemon, I choose you. Regirock. So that's nice. I just want to point out that I did forget to run Scorpbot, but that's because that was an API button. So the other buttons, for example, like my questions, quotes, and blame Ant, they wouldn't have worked had I not had the bot running. So let me do that. All right, so again, I have cooldowns set for my buttons, as you can see. This was an API read button from Firebot, as were these other buttons, they talk to Scorpbot. So if you have clearly you have Scorpbot running while you're testing this, but here we go. So specs. There we are. So this is my current, stream setup. There's a picture, and then there's the link to my parts list, etc. So all these talk to Scorpbot, and then they may take like just a half a second, but they work. You can set this up again all through Firebot itself. I just chose to not make that change just yet because I already had everything set up through Scorpbot. But it is it's fairly easy to do. So questions, boop. What types of games do you play normally? So that one is a little bit more of a workaround. It's just not a command that displays text in chat from Scorpbot. If you want to read more into that and or see more into that, I will definitely be making my Scorpbot tutorial video so you can catch up with that. Down into the more chaotic buttons, like I was saying, we've got our sounds. So for my soundboard, because I typically play music while I'm streaming, I have to set it up a little bit differently. As you can see, this may be a tad much, you'd think, but it is not. It works out very, very well. So we have our chat function here to, if I am playing music through the Scorpbot music player, this will pause the music. If I'm playing it through, for example, Foobar, because that's my hotkey for that, it will pause the music. So no matter what, I'll get my music paused. It will pause, then delay for a split second. As you can see, 1 second there. Then it will play the sound. After the sound is done, it will then continue to play music. Right here, the delay after the sound. This needs to, as you can see the note here, if you want it to be 10 seconds after a 10-second sound, then you need to have it at 20 seconds. So let's look at my delay. My delay, I normally have about 2 to 3 seconds after, so the sound effect is 14 seconds long. My delay is going to be 16 seconds, so that way when the sound plays, it'll start counting, and then, because it goes in succession. So we've got, that function goes first, but because there's no delay, these two actually proc at the same time. Then there's a delay, then the sound plays, and then as the sound's playing, this delay counter is ticking away, and then after a couple of seconds, exactly 2 seconds, it will then go and replay the music, which is very handy. You don't have to have a hotkey on your mouse or like go to your stream deck or anything to like pause stuff. It's doing it all on its own, which is very, very nice. You definitely don't want the button to be held down, and you don't need any opposites for buttons like this. The only time you'd need an opposite button is if you're using a game control. And not by game control, I mean a hotkey for your music. I'm meaning like a key that needs to be held down to move the character to the right and or the left. At that point, if like D is your movement key for up here, you'd want A as your movement key over here as the opposite key, and should they be held down? Yes. So that way people can move and not have to click to move. And these ones are all sounds, so they're all set up the exact same way, just again with different delays depending on the length of the song. You probably want about 2 to 5 seconds, so that way there's not too much dead air, but there's also not sounds running over top of sounds. It's very helpful. Now, to get into the scene switching, it for me it's a little chaotic. For most it won't be as bad. But what you want to do is you want to, like I was saying, have your buttons in the previous video. If you have like mods or subs, or if you just want to change from board to board, so like I've got fall sounds, winter sounds, summer and spring sounds, and those are all like music that was just popular within that time. It's not actual just winter sounds. But what you do here is you go to change scene as your button, and then you go, or excuse me, for your effect, and then you go down here to change scenes, and then you mark all the users that you want to switch scenes when the button is pressed. So if you don't want your moderators to go through all the pages of buttons or whatnot, or for me, an exact group, this is a grouping for myself, so that way I can only see a certain amount of buttons. I don't need to go through all the boards myself. I just need to be able to see a couple to, if something happens, I can reset it for everybody real quick if like the buttons aren't working for them, etc. But yeah, so that's what you would do here. And then after that, you want to set it to the button that it would be changing to. So I named the button fall because I want it to go to the fall scene. So then you change it to whichever scene you want. Again, the scenes are the scenes that you made in the dev lab. So that would be here. Build. So again, that's my default scene that had the fall button there, and I wanted to, if you press the fall button, you want it to go to the fall scene, and that would bring you here, and you'd see a completely different set of buttons. Which, once interactive comes up, boop, changed. When scene switching, you want at least a couple of seconds before these buttons become active again, because if you have it just at 0, it will potentially break. You don't see any cooldown right here because it's set up differently. I will be showing you that in just a moment. So again, here we've got multiple boards. Again, all of my songs do the same thing. Graphics, if they have sounds and you want like GIFs displayed on screen and whatnot, you probably want to use the similar chat game control function with delay, play the GIF, however you say it, and then delay again to then replay your music if music is something that you do on your strum. But to get into the cooldowns and also the other viewer groups, you will be right here. So I've got my own little user group here for my overseer scene. Excuse me, I was about to go to the wrong board. This is just, like I said, this is my scene. It's master of on and off. I hit on, it resets the board. I hit off, it turns the board off, letting nobody hit buttons because there are no buttons to hit. But yeah, no, it works out pretty well. So here's my off board. When I hit off, it sends everybody else here. And then this is just information. Hey, sorry, board's off. It'll be back on later. Again, to do that, you would then have a scene switch. And then you'd change everybody else's scenes. And then which scenes should we change to? Off. And there we go. Because there are no buttons for them to press on that, there is no scene switching that needs to be done on this side. This is just all information. These buttons have no effects. And then when you want to turn it back on, I use reset scenes. Rather than going back to the default scene, every single one of my boards that has a reset button, so it takes you back to the default scene. And going to reset scenes is much easier than going to change scene, because sometimes changing scenes, like I was saying, it can break. So resetting just refreshes the board back to default, and then poof, everybody comes back here, which is very handy. When doing this much work, if you've seen, I have parentheses, D for default, F for fall. You will want to do that within your button ID. So that way you do not lose track, because when coming over here to cooldowns, as you can see, I have all of my songs on a cooldown. So you edit, and what I do, I just search by the board if I need to, and it makes things much easier. You don't have to look through an entire list of things, or if you do have like the same name of button, or you want the same name of button, so like music 1, got a lot of music 1s to just display information. You know, music 1, 2, and 3, that's for all my boards. So what you do is within the button IDs, you put parentheses around them and categorize them as such to where they don't run each other over, because you can't have the same two buttons with the same name. It just won't work. That's the same ID. So makes it very handy when setting up your cooldowns to do that. And then again, you know, all your cooldown groups can be set differently. These are for songs, these are for scenes, these ones are for the graphics, information buttons, music controls. So that way people aren't pausing and playing the music or skipping songs just forever. And then here we go. There's my shadow play clip button. And for setting yourself up with your own little board, you would just make a viewer group. To make a viewer group, you go back here and you add a new group, and then you can edit it and select a user. So here we're going to go with gamer tag is ant, then add, save, and then when I go to refresh this page, I should see a completely different board. Master of on and off. So that one just reset the board back from winter or fall, whichever one we were on, to everybody seeing default. And then this one turns it off for everyone. However, I can't see that because I have my own little board. But if that's something that you want to do, rather than having your mods do it, I have my tablet open at all times, so I can just click it right there. Makes it handy. Very handy. But yeah, that's pretty much most all of what I kind of do in Firebot. I don't want to try explaining into things that I don't really get into, like the chat functions. I haven't touched this at all. So I will get into it and make a specific video just on the chat once I do so, but until then I really only work with interactive. I don't work with chat because I do all of my chat functions within Scortbot. Moderation, as you can see, is what it sounds like. It shows you your event log. You can set Spark exemption, so if you want just specific users to be exempt from the spark cost on your board, you can set just one person, and or if you want to set a specific group, like, you know, moderators don't have to pay or subs don't have to pay, you know, you can do that, which is pretty nice, pretty nice. Me personally, none of my buttons cost anything, so never really have to worry about that. And if you get a spammer and or just someone who keeps hitting the same button over and over and over again that is a sub, that only sub to have unlimited access to that. I mean, yes, while you set it up like that for fun, most people should have the common courtesy not to just try to wreck your stream and ruin your train of thought by spamming the buttons over and over and over again. So you can set them up there, and then they will not be able to touch a single button. Settings, pretty simple. I use the dark theme. You can use the light theme. It's just, for me, it's really bright. If you need to reset up, you can always open the setup wizard and you'll go back through the whole entire process again. I have the app sounds on only because when chat or interactive disconnects, I want to be able to know without having to have chat tell me. Occasionally the bot breaks and just doesn't work with it not actually going down, so that will be a thing, but that's because it is always constantly being developed. Good bot nonetheless. If you need to access any of the main folder stuff where all your data is, right there. I like to go on major versions. I don't like default or betas because sometimes by default the beta is the newer version. I like stable versions because I've had a lot of my stuff wiped out of this bot before in previous builds, so I leave it on major and then I always make a backup and a copy. Like, I make a backup and then I also make another copy and save that to the desktop or whatnot and make sure that I can at least re-import my board and not have to reset up all of my buttons, because as you can see, multiple scenes, setting up all those buttons every single time you update the bot could be very chaotic and just a pain in the butt. Here we have your interactive controls. If you are not getting, you know, robot.js to work, you might need to switch over to the keyboard robot, which, you know, if your buttons aren't working, just try swapping to the other one. There's really no huge explanation there. Is what it is. I don't do too much custom scripts. I don't have any. So if you do and you want to learn how to use that feature, you know, you'll want to turn this on and to enable your scripts, and then click on the button to go to the Firebot area to learn how to write a script and or also apply it. So something that I've not gotten into because I've not really needed it, but we will probably be looking into this in the future, and once I do so, I will be making an update video on it for sure. Overlay. So if you want to use, for example, in buttons, you want to use the effect for celebration. If you want to use the effect for celebration is pretty nice. You can, right now it's just fireworks, and it displays for a matter of time of, you know, your choosing. It will just like poof confetti fireworks all over your, or excuse me, not confetti. There were confetti and fireworks. It will just pop fireworks all over your screen, and the default resolution I think is native to 4K. It can be downscaled to, you know, 1080, 720, whatever your monitor size is. In OBS for your or excuse me, whatever your capture size is for OBS, you should be able to size it appropriately, and it will display the fireworks as such. Another thing that would be used for the overlay would be, where is it? Show image and or show video. So the show image allows you to choose an image to show out of your local files, and then wherever you want it to be, top left, middle right, or you can even set it to be custom, set it wherever you want on the screen. There are a couple of different effects, you know, bounce in, bounce out, fade in, rotate, slide, zoom, lightning speed, you know, jack in the box, and there's a bunch of different stuff to play with here. So I would highly suggest, you know, just fiddling with it and checking it out. You can also adjust the size. So if you have it as a smaller image and you want it to blow up, it does kind of scale pretty nice. It doesn't blur too bad, but I mean, you can't blow an image up too massive without it looking distorted. So if you need to make a bigger image smaller, you can also do that. Very, very handy. Very handy. Another effect again is video. That one's pretty easy. Local video or YouTube. And yeah, no, that's pretty much it for the little overlay. And at this point, we've pretty much covered all the buttons. So you can also right here display a custom HTML within your overlay. I don't do any of that. Again, I don't mess with many of the chat functions, metadatas. I don't do any of the scripting or any of the cool nifty HTML or CSS type of stuff. Just not my field of expertise. So I typically tend to mess things up when moving to that area. But when I learn, I will definitely be making videos on that. This is just going to be interactive buttons talking from one bot to another bot, being Firebot to Scorpbot. All the chat functions should work with Scottybot as well. I'm just not sure all of what Scottybot has in terms of like adding quotes and timers and this and that, etc. We'll get into what all of Scorpbot has in another video, and I'm most likely going to be checking out Scottybot just to give you guys a little bit of information on that, because that is good for the IRL streamers or the streamer on the go that doesn't have their PC on at their house 100% of the time, just to be able to take care of chat. And let's be honest, sometimes Scorpbot does die and or needs an update, so it doesn't work 100% of the time while you're away from your computer. So we've got here backups. Pretty self-explanatory. I like to back up every time the bot closes, and also before it updates. I don't keep all of my old backups because, I mean, that's a lot. I close the bot every single day, so that would just make tons and tons of backups. However, it is nice if you don't want to just overwrite your backup, but what I do is I'll do a backup now and I'll save that to a different directory and then do that once a week, so that way I'm not losing too much. I don't change the bot entirely too often, so if you do have a lot of changes within your bot, just make sure you make a manual backup and or just check this box for keep all old backups, and then, you know, once a week just go through and close not close, but delete like 4 or 5 of them, so that way you don't have a super huge buildup. It doesn't take too much data, but for those that do have smaller drives, I would suggest turning that off. Now into the advanced tab. Don't touch this. You don't need to. Unless you know what you're doing with your web server ports and overlay instances and whatnot, you shouldn't need to touch any of this. The bot generally works very, very, very well. But yeah, you will not need to be touching the advanced tab. Should work just fine. Just fine. This little bell up here is notifications. It will tell you alerts about recent events that have happened around the bot. So there's a command trigger behavior change, and if you click on that, it will tell you what's been changed from last updates to this update. So in the last update, command triggers over here were just text. You didn't have to have like exclamation point as like you did for Scorpbot or whatnot. The trigger just went off of the letters. That was it. So it made while talking and just talking in chat, it would just proc all these commands and make them trigger and whatnot. And it just that was chaotic. So he changed that, which is very helpful. So we're pretty much covered all the bot except for updates. This tab's pretty nice. It's a newer tab that keeps getting fancier and fancier every single update, but it pretty much just tells you what the new release is. Oh, see, I was looking for this yesterday. I had to actually delete a bunch of effects to where I could get them in order, like delay. I needed to move delay up. So, had I actually jumped into this beta, I would have been able to move my stuff around. But the reason why I don't do beta releases is because it contains a lot of back-end changes, and sometimes your data can get corrupted. They don't say that specifically. They just say we recommend backing up. But still, this tab is very helpful. You can read the new updates rather than having to go to the GitHub page. You need to report bugs, you can do that there. It'll just directly link you there. If you need to get also the about down here, if you want to get there through that, you can also go to the GitHub through there. Again, these are the people that worked on it. Here's the issues page for submitting bugs. Suggestion of features, again, that all links you to the appropriate spots, and if you need to update, it just downloads the update, which I did not want to do. Oh, I forgot something. My bot did update, yes, but quick little tidbit. There were a lot of backend changes, which just means that the bot's going to stay connected a little bit easier, a little bit better. There was one thing that I skipped over. It's really, really, really self-explanatory. It's this, the active button. If you have a button that you just kind of want off because you're just, like, let's say you're just feeling a little down, or just not in like your mood or whatever, but just like your energy. You're not wanting to like have a hype button maybe right now, or intense part of the game, so, or just intense game that you're playing that day. You want to still have your soundboard, but you don't want to have the chaotic buttons active. You can just go here and click activate button or active button. Or for example, like this is just an info button, so I would do active button no, and then it makes it unclickable. Meaning people can still read it and see it. You don't actually have the ability to click on it. And that's that's how it was last time. Let me actually double check and make sure that it's not changed. I'd hate to be giving you guys false information. And then that was stuff and info. So yeah, as you can see, it's still grayed out. It doesn't take it off the board completely. It just makes it to where you can't click on it, because there's really no need to. It doesn't do anything. So that's super nice, super handy. Again, yeah, if you don't want any scene switching, or if you just didn't want your hype buttons or whatnot being able to be clicked, then you would in turn use those to turn them off, which is, again, very nice, very nice. If you have any suggestions to the bot, or you just want to see new things get added, definitely hit up that the updates page and suggest a feature, because I will say that suggesting features does help. Sometimes, features get denied, or I'll admit in the forums that people can be a little bit blunt and or seem rude. It's just, you may not know what it takes to get all the coding around to actually doing such things. I will say again though that it is helpful to add suggestions, because one of the people in the comments of one of these videos in the last Firebot tutorial wanted to see die roll as a thing. And because this button isn't active, we can't do anything to it. Oh, nope, there's a bug with adding an effect. But yeah, suggesting features is never a bad idea, because someone in the video previously did ask if there was such thing as a die rolling thing that we could set up within the chat, with the arguments and such, and there really wasn't. There was no way to really do it within Squirtbot and or talking within Firebot and Squirtbot to get it to work. But he suggested the feature to Firebottle, and now we can roll die. So throw your idea out there. A lot of people may like it. It may get a ton of upvotes. Even if it doesn't get a ton of upvotes, it may just be a really good idea and get added to the bot. They're really helpful, and they're nice people. Again, sometimes they can be a little blunt or harsh. It seems like in the no, that's not going to work, we're not doing that area, but they typically try to let you down a little easier. I mean, we're all here for the same reasons, and that's the love of Mixer and interactivity. So there's no need to be harsh when making your post. If you're harsh while you're making your post, you're generally going to get harsh feedback. So just be friendly, ask for a simple request and or suggestion for a feature, and then you'll be right on your way to talking with a developer and getting that set up. So again, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you all later.